What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we finish our talks on the Bladesinging Wizard. This is the wizard that focuses a little bit more on slicing and dicing and being a tank, being a frontliner, all the fun things that normally wizards aren't that interested in, but we are very much interested in today, and we get to build one and put that to the test. Before we do that though, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and also click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded, and share the video with your friends. This is going to be a really fun build, albeit somewhat vanilla. I do think we've taken a fun option with it in order to give it some nice little enhancements here and there. Obviously, at least to me, the best version of the Bladesinger is generally going to be 20 levels of Bladesinger. I've decided to do a little bit of light multi-classing for a couple little buffs that come from elsewhere, but it is the vast majority all in Wizard, which is really good. And I think that there are some really fun things that we can do with this, and we will jump right into it after a word from our sponsor. If you are looking for a great gift this upcoming Christmas season, then the Wandering Tavern by Homie and the Dude is the perfect one for the TTRPG lover. This system agnostic setting features 15 floors and 23 unique locations for you to explore on a massive airship. Interact with the various factions to learn all of the mysteries held within this vessel. Learn recipes for unique benefits and even compete in a bake-off. If you like the work of Studio Ghibli, then this is absolutely the one for you. Learn more with the link below and use code DAPPER10 to receive 10% off at checkout. And of course, by doing so, you will be supporting my channel. Thank you again to Homie and the Dude for supporting the channel, and let's get back to the video. Here are the rules for our series as always, and so if your stats look a little bit different than mine, you may have to make a few adjustments, but otherwise, pretty much everything should be the same. For our race, of course, we are going with one that, again, is kind of a big no-no, but it is what it is. We're going custom lineage because I want a feat at level 1. I don't care. It's really good to have this right off the bat so that we can have our strategy online from get. Could we afford to take a different race and to take this later? Probably, but I still would like to focus on getting this very useful feat, and that is the mobile feat. The mobile feat is really fantastic, especially on something like this that is a frontliner that maybe isn't going to be wearing that heavy armor, right? We're not going to be wearing heavy armor with this, otherwise we shut down our blade song. And so we want to be pretty mobile. We want to be moving around the battlefield a lot and getting in and out and dealing a lot of damage. And this actually works really well with one of the parts of it is that when we make a melee attack, we can then basically disengage for free. That's really good, and will come up again here in just a second. For our stats, of course, modified standard array like what we said. We're going with a highest stat in intelligence, our second highest in dexterity. Those should always be your top 2 stats. Then we've got constitution and wisdom. Those should be 3rd and 4th in that order. And finally, strength and charisma should be your dumps. For a custom lineage, we're going to get a +2 into 1 stat, and I'm of course going to throw that into my intelligence. You could just as easily throw it into dexterity. Either way is totally fine for this build. For our equipment, it's kind of a weird one here, and you can go a couple of different routes with this, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in the honorable mentions as well. But I'm going to grab, for now, a rapier, even though we're not going to be using it right off the bat. We're going to grab a dagger, and that's what we're going to be using at least for now. You could also take there are a couple other weapons that will work at this point, but dagger's the easiest to get your hands on, and so that's probably going to be my option. But the rapier is going to be in the back pocket for a couple levels, and then we'll pull that out and use it. For right now, we can use some medium armor actually, although we're going to be ditching that pretty soon as well. And then you can use light armor if you want to, and I'll talk about that here in just a little bit as well. Light armor for now is not going to be the best thing, just because you have some other options out there, but like I said, things are going to shift around in just a minute. Let's start taking some levels, of course, and so at level 1, we are not going to be a wizard, we're going to be an artificer. Now, artificer is one that I haven't talked about in quite a while. I'll put the general guide up in the iCard above, but the artificer is pretty cool, right? You're a tinkerer and you make little magic items, and that's really cool. We're not really super interested in all of that. We're more so interested in, number one, the expanded use of spellcasting, which is cool. But more so, we're here for the Constitution saving throw proficiency. That's the main thing, right? We don't have to worry about any kind of multi-classing stuff into fighter, where we're not going to get nearly as much out of one level of fighter, right? And so this gives us a little bit more, and I think that's really, really good. For our spell casting, of course, we're going to get some cantrips, we're going to get a couple first level spells, that kind of thing, and then we're going to move on to wizard. So I'm going to go ahead and take Booming Blade though. Booming Blade is going to be a mainstay of this build. We're going to be using this pretty much the entire time, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Firebolt is a nice backup option, so we're going to have to wait until we get access to our rapier, which will be here in just a second. But yeah, Firebolt is a nice little reliable option in the meantime, and then we also can take things like Fairy Fire for the first level spells in order to give blanket advantage. Really, really cool stuff. Level 2, we're going to move on to Wizard, and we're going to be here for a hot minute. Now, there is an argument here to just take Wizard the rest of the way, or to just be a Wizard the entire time. To me, I really like the Constitution saving throw proficiency. I like that it doesn't hold our spell slot progression back as badly as going with something like Fighter, but it gives us some really, really nice stuff, right? It also saves our slots for our feats so that we don't have to take something like Resilient Constitution. It allows us to save that on other ASIs and other feats, which I think is also pretty valuable. And to me, I think we can afford to take this one level here. For Wizard 1, we're going to get, of course, Spellcasting and Arcane Recovery. Arcane Recovery, of course, allows us to get back some spell slots, which is nice. If you don't know what the general Wizard features do, I'll put a link up to that in the iCard above, so you can check that out as well. As for our Wizard cantrips, I would go ahead and grab Green Flame Blade, which is one that we did not grab as part of the Artificer list. This gives us another option. Now, to me, Booming Blade is going to be what we're going to use probably 90% of the time. Maybe slightly lower, just depending on the situation. Green Flame Blade is there for when you have two enemies right next to each other in your face. Booming Blade is when you're attacking one creature. In general, Booming Blade is going to be used far more than Green Flame Blade, but it's nice to have it in the back pocket. Other things include things like Minor Illusion, Mage Hand, just your general use type of cantrips. I'm sure you can find a bunch in there that work well for you. For first level spells, I'm going to take Mage Armor. Now here is where we create kind of a split. You could use the light armor, say Leather Armor or whatever it happens to be. However, Leather Armor is going to be an 11 plus Dex modifier, whereas Mage Armor is 13. So if you can find some light armor that is better than Mage Armor, use that. Otherwise, we're going to use Mage Armor and stick with that. And so, you know, maybe that'll evolve over time. Maybe you'll find some magical light armor and make that useful, whatever it happens to be. And if so, by all means, feel free to switch. That'll save you a spell slot per day. We also have the shield spell, and can't leave home without that. We, of course, are a frontliner. If you get access to shield, you're taking shield. A couple others to always pack: Silvery Barbs, because Silvery Barbs, and Find Familiar for that free advantage by taking the help action. I've beaten this one to death on how this works, but you take an owl, have it take the help action in order to give you advantage on your first attack, which is really, really cool. At Wizard 2, we're going to get training in War and Song and Blade Song. We are now a Bladesinging Wizard, which is fantastic. And we also are going to start having a Sky High AC. And this is amazing, right? Because on top of our calculation, we're now adding on our intelligence modifier, which is also going to be very, very high. And so we're going to be boosting our dexterity and our intelligence as high as they can go, as quickly as we can. And that's just going to be a really big focus for us throughout this build, to get that AC as high as possible so that we are just harder and harder to take down. Also, in the training of War and Song, this is where we get access to the rapier. And so get rid of anything else you were using. Rapier is going to be what we're using from now on. Well, maybe, except we get to Wizard 3 and we get cantrip formulas, which is fine, but now we get Shadow Blade as a second level spell. Shadow Blade causes a lot of controversy, I guess, in the D&D community as to whether or not it is allowed to be used with Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade. The problem comes with when they updated the wording for Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade, it now says that the material component is a weapon that has a cost. Shadow Blade does not have a cost, and therefore, rules as written is not compatible. However, if you ask Jeremy Crawford says, rules as intended, it is allowed. So basically how this is going to work is ask your DM. There are plenty of DMs out there that say this is allowed. There are plenty of DMs out there that say it is not. And for a question of the day, I would love to know what your table says, whether you are the DM or you are the player, whatever it happens to be. Is this combination allowed at your table? I get a lot of both answers, and it really depends on how liberal your DM happens to be with certain rules. And so, yeah, I would love to know what your table does for this. So assuming your table does allow this, you keep this and you combine it with Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade and go nuts. If your DM does not allow this combination, then you're going to skip this spell, and we will add on an extra one here in just a second as our concentration spell. We'll get there in a second. For other spells, Misty Step and Shatter are great, just another nice damaging option, as well as a movement option. Definitely nice to have on deck. For Wizard 4, we're going to get our first ASI or feat, and like I said, we're taking an ASI. Now, for now, we're going to be going +1 Intelligence, +1 Constitution. This is going to, of course, bump both of those up. That does bump our AC up during Bladesong, which is great, and it gives us a little bit more HP, and we also are going to be better with our concentration checks. A lot of really good stuff. We will fix the dexterity here in just a second. Wizard 5 comes with no features, but we do get 3rd level spells, and this is what I was talking about. If you are not taking Shadow Blade, I would focus on Haste. Haste is going to be a really good option for you, and that way you get an extra attack, you get to run around even faster, and we're trying to make it to where it's really hard for us to lose concentration, so you don't end up in that sleepy state for a turn, which could be detrimental, obviously. You also get things like Counterspell at this level. Very, very good stuff. At Wizard 6, we finally get extra attack, which is cool, and of course one of our attacks can be Booming Blade. And so I didn't mention why we're taking the mobile feat, right? This allows us to run in. Now we can make an attack, extra attack, which is now replaced with Booming Blade. Whether or not this is Shadow Blade or not, again, depends on your DM, but definitely could be if your table allows it. But you make that second attack and then you walk away. Now that enemy is standing there, has nothing to do because you left, and now has a decision. Either I stand here and waste my turn, or I run towards you to try to take you out, but take a bunch of Booming Blade damage in the process. Regardless, you win, the enemy loses. And I think that's really, really cool. Again, you would be focused on those frontline or melee enemies, and this is great. It's a great way to just rack up tons of damage, whether you are actually making contact with them or not at all times, which is really, really cool. Now, at this next level, again, this is a controversial move, at least to me, but I'm going to take another level in Artificer. Now, like I said, I think that it is very valid to take all 20 levels in Wizard, and by all means, I think it's a great idea. However, I do think that there is one way that we can improve this, and whether that is with Shadow Blade route or the Haste route, I think that we need to grab an infusion, and that is the Mind Sharpener. The Mind Sharpener gives us a few charges per day that allow us to automatically pass concentration checks. That is huge, right? There's basically no other reason why I'm taking this level, but there's also no other way to get something like this. And so, yeah, this is really, really cool. As far as other infusions, it really depends on what you have. You could take Enhanced Defense, but you have to be wearing armor or you have a shield. You can't use shield for Bladesong, and of course we said we're using mage armor. That doesn't count. So that depends. If you are wanting to take Enhanced Weapon, if you're using a normal weapon because Shadow Blade isn't allowed, that works. If you're using Shadow Blade, it doesn't. So it really depends on what is happening at your table as to what is useful. If you are not wearing armor and are using your Shadow Blade right now, then neither of those really help you, and just pick your favorite, right? Maybe you want a homunculus servant so you can start a zoo. I don't know, but take whatever you think is most useful to you. There are plenty of other options. now we're going to go back to Wizard, and I promise we're going to stay here the rest of the way. At Wizard 7, we get no features, but we get 4th level spells, and my top 2 are going to be Greater Invisibility and Polymorph. Being able to turn your friend into a T-Rex while you still go wailing on things is fantastic. Being able to be invisible while you wail on guys is also really, really cool. Again, this would be giving up concentration on one of our lower level spells, but still really, really cool. To me, it's going to be your best use case to actually maximum cast Shadow Blade, whatever your highest spell slot is. And actually, technically, you're a little bit ahead because of the 2 levels in Artificer, which is pretty cool. And so I would use those to upcast your Shadow Blade, and then you've got these to possibly use at another time once you've used up that slot if you want to. Now, Wizard 8, we have a couple of options here, and it really depends, again, on what weapon you are allowed to use. For me, if you are using your rapier and can't do the Shadow Blade stuff, the Piercer Feat is the obvious choice. That to me is going to be the top choice for being able to reroll some damage and hopefully raise your damage dealt. It also has more effective crits, but most importantly, it's going to bump that dexterity score to an odd number, which is great. Not only does that help your damage dealt, it helps your bonus to hit, and it also boosts your AC. All of the good things there, right? However, if you are using the Shadow Blade, then you don't need the Piercer Feat. And in this case, this might be the one time ever that I actually would recommend taking something like the Athlete Feat. Now, the Athlete Feat normally is one that I would never recommend. I normally would never say, take this feat. However, it does boost dexterity, which is good, and it also is going to boost mobility. Not quite as good as the mobile feat, but it does help with certain things. Again, I don't think that it's a good feat. However, we do need a half feat, and mobility is a big deal. And so the Athlete Feat, for once in literally all of 5e, that might actually be the play. So, I don't know. Let me know if there's another option that you think is better. But to me, I think that's pretty much the only other option that I can think of that actually may give you some use out of it. At Warlock 9, we get no features, but we do get 5th level spells. If you take nothing else, take Wall of Force. That is a big deal, a huge deal, to be able to corral enemies where you want them to go and to basically lead them to their demise. You lock them in with your Barbarian, yeah, they're in for a bad time, which can be devastating, and it's amazing to watch. You just sit outside and watch everybody go to town. Then we also have Wizard 10 going for Song of Defense. We talked about this feature being okay, right? It's not the best thing out there because it doesn't prevent damage, it just softens the blow, but still not the worst thing out there. Wizard 11, no features, but we do get 6th level spells, and we're kind of at the point where a lot of our strategy really isn't changing all that much as we level up. You know, we're still going to use our highest spell slots for Shadow Blade, assuming we can use it, or we're going to be Greater Invisibility, Polymorphing, that kind of thing, depending on whatever you have to do. To me, it's kind of pick your favorite for the next few spell levels because there aren't any that really elevate our strategy. Our strategy's pretty consistent for this entire build, which is good for some people. Maybe some people don't like how monotonous that can be, but still, if it works, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So then we get Wizard 12, and I'm going to just bump dexterity, right? Nothing too crazy there. I don't think there's any reason to do anything else at this point. I think you just need to boost dexterity until it is maxed out. Again, helps your bonus to hit, helps your damage, and it helps your AC. All amazing things. Wizard 13, we get no features, but we get 7th level spells. Same as the 6th level spells. Pick your favorite. I think that there are plenty of options here that are good, but none of them are particularly specific to this build that say, I must take this. So there you go. Pick whatever you think works best. At Wizard 14, we get Song of Victory, which is really cool. Again, we've already maxed out that intelligence, and so now we're using it to deal extra damage, and that feels really, really good. So again, we're boosting our dexterity in order to get that higher for extra damage. We're boosting our intelligence now to deal extra damage, and so we're getting a double bonus off of that for not only the damage dealt, but also now for our AC, which is really, really cool. Wizard 15, we get no features, but we do get 8th level spells. Once again, pick your favorites. Our strategies are staying pretty much the same, so there's not really a whole lot to discuss on that, but there are some incredible 8th level spells that you can take. Wizard 16, once again, we're boosting our dexterity. I just don't see a reason to do anything else. You know, I say we're going to boost our dexterity and our intelligence as high as they can possibly go, because that is just going to give us our maximum benefit through this whole thing. There just is no other way on that. Next, we get Wizard 17, and we get no features, but we get 9th level spells. And of course, you've got your mass polymorphs, you've got your wishes, you've got all that fun stuff. Again, pick your favorite there. I'd probably go mass polymorph because it's very reliable, but you've got plenty of options there. And finally, level 20, Wizard 18, we get Spell Mastery, and this allows you to pick a 1st and 2nd level spell and cast it like crazy. Shield, absolutely, and or, you know, really with our AC being as high as it is, you might want to opt for something like Silvery Barbs. I don't know, but to me it's probably Shield. And for the 2nd level spell, Misty Step's probably my go-to. So what do you think of today's build? I think that this is a really fun and really powerful build working around a very powerful subclass, and I think that it is a ton of fun. But let's take a look at some honorable mentions of what almost was. Now, I want to start by talking about something that I literally never mention on the channel at all, and that is backgrounds. Now, backgrounds, to me, I think has started out basically useless, and it's why I don't mention them during any of my builds. However, in more recent times, of course, builds have changed, and there are a lot of feats out there that now are included within certain backgrounds. You know, there are backgrounds out there that give you the tough feat, right? There are backgrounds out there that can give you extra spell lists, right? There's all kinds of stuff that's out there. To me, if you wanted to get the maximum benefit, if it's allowed at your table, the Lorehold student background, in order to get access to an expanded spell list, is going to be really, really good. And mainly because we also get access to Spirit Guardians. This is more of that passive damage. Again, if you're not able to use the Shadow Blade combination, this is a real no-brainer to be able to run up and deal extra damage, run away, leave somebody on the outer edge of the actual spell itself, and there's just so much good happening there. That's really the best and easiest way to get access to this spell without giving up too much, and so that's the route I would go if you can take that. Again, I don't know that most tables are allowing that, but if you can, that's what I would go with. For our standard list of things we look at, for other multi-classing options, I would of course look at going a little bit deeper into the Artificer if you wanted to, and go with the Battlesmith. The Battlesmith, of course, allows you to attack with your intelligence rather than the dexterity. Here's the thing, is that dexterity is just as important to us as intelligence. At least it's very close, just because of its benefit that we get to AC, its benefit that we get to attacks, its benefit we get to all of those things. So to me, I don't know that there is as much of a benefit here to doing that. We also know that our Steel Defender is not going to scale all that well because it's only going to be level 3, so it's going to be incredibly frail, although it is nice to have by our side in order to force disadvantage. That could be good, but again, it's so frail that it's going to likely go down in one hit to almost anything. So that's something to consider, and we also can't use any of the extra proficiencies that come along with it as well because they conflict with Blade Song. So next up we get Fighter, and Fighter of course is another great way to get access to that Constitution saving throw proficiency. It gives you better armor proficiency if you wanted to go that route. Again, to me, I want to make the most use of Blade Song, so I'm not going to go that route. But there are plenty of options that could help you out with that. And finally, another interesting one is the Monk. The Monk actually is very cool because if you take a couple of levels of this and a bunch of Monk, you can actually get your AC to be through the absolute roof. It's wild what you can do with the combination of unarmored defense and the Blade Song feature. It's kind of wild. It's kind of wild. So definitely look at that. For other feat options, we've got things like Warcaster. This is of course is an alternative to taking that 2nd level in Artificer in order to get advantage. Now the Artificer is a little bit more reliable, I would say, and this allows us to cast cantrips as a reaction. So that would be Booming Blade instead of just a normal attack. Still, I think we're okay without it, but definitely is an option worth mentioning. The other option I would mention is Metamagic Adept with the Quicken spell. Once we've activated our Shadow Blade, which is a bonus action, we don't have a ton to do on our bonus action unless we're Misty Stepping, which we don't necessarily need to if we have mobile feet and we have enough movement left. So what I would do is I would have Quicken Spell on hand so that I can bonus action Booming Blade into Booming Blade again, and that would really help. I think that helps out a lot, especially since it's a cantrip. You could, of course, quicken a normal spell as long as it's low enough level, but to me, I think that's the most useful way that we could do that. And then for other racial options, I would start off with the Half-Elf. The Half-Elf, of course, is kind of what started this all, or at least the Elven races did, and I think that this is incredibly useful. You, of course, can combine this with Elven Accuracy, which just makes it even more insane, but yeah, this is overall an absolutely incredible race for this. And a really interesting one I wanted to throw in there is the Turtle. The Turtle, of course, does not need to wear armor because you have natural armor, which is really cool, and it allows you to kind of be the turtle from Kung Fu Panda, but you also get a weapon, which is kind of funny. And I think that's really, really interesting, having the really high AC and then being able to add on to it with your blade song, which is really, really good. So that is all for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to let me know down below. Next week, we're taking a stop in Tal'Dorei as we take a look at the Blood Wizard, which is going to be a lot of fun before we get back to our normally scheduled things, and it's going to be very interesting, to say the least. Until then, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.